Hey guys, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and welcome to another episode of the Fox and Burger podcast, where we bring you closer to the Asian side of the furry fandom. As always, I'm your co-host Fox.
And I'm Burger.
But for today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We want to do a sort of 2021 year in review. We want to talk about updates in our lives, the podcast overall, and our plans for the future. But before we begin, I want to personally give a shout out to all the guests, the fans, the listeners of the podcast. As of this writing, we have officially 113 subs on YouTube and 74 followers on Twitter. And to me, this is a really big deal. It's a really big accomplishment. So I can't thank you guys enough. You guys made it happen. So without further ado, let's get into the last episode of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's late at night, so I can't exactly be too loud right now, but just for the audience to imagine this, imagine if there's like 113 people inside of one room, sitting down in their seats, watching us right now. That's potentially how many fans we have right now. I know that YouTube may seem like a very big numbers game, but anything more than one is always good.
Yeah, I really think that, when I saw when I got the email for the podcast, they sent an email saying you reached 100 subs. So every sub makes a difference. Every baby step is considered a big step in my eyes. So again, really appreciate you guys on that.
Let's go ahead and start this podcast with a little discussion of our personal lives so far. When we began this podcast, I was in transition between jobs, and as of now, I have gone through a couple of freelance / part-time jobs, and right now, not only am I working part-time, I'm also finally studying Mandarin in a more academic setting.
And how have your classes been?
It's been an interesting gig so far. Essentially, it's 4 or 5 foreigners in a small little classroom at the Zhongyuan University in Taoyuan. We have some master students basically doing student teaching for us. We have one for the first hour and then another for the remaining 2 hours. They have plenty of activities and lots of immersion, listening, examples, and just like any good language teacher, they speak the language they want you to be immersed in 99% of the time,
right?
Unless someone is just completely lost and they just kind of reach in and grab them through the English language. It's mostly just 4 guys, including me, all from different backgrounds. We all sort of learn from each other, I would say, because some of us know words and phrases that others don't. Some of us are more proficient and have more practice than others. One of us is a Scottish guy who lived in Japan for almost 12 years, married a Taiwanese woman, and moved here. So he already has a good idea of the written language just because kanji and Hanzu share a similar writing system. I'm not going to say it's one-to-one. Hanzu. That's basically it. I'm not sure what I want to do in terms of personal projects because for the most part this year I have been working on my personal YouTube channel and this channel as well, but I'm starting to back away from my personal channel because I actually have quite a few creative talents that I want to invest into outside of video editing and producing.
Like how so? What talents?
Something like creative writing and music, mostly music. I have a larger background in music than I do video and writing. It's just the trouble is, what is your sound and what do you want to write about? And are you comfortable with your own voice? That's the biggest hurdle with not just voiceover, but music and anything that involves your own personal voice. And that's easy enough to do with video because you can edit around your mistakes, but with music it's a lot more difficult to edit around your mistakes if it has more melody to it.
Sure.
Or it's just a different style that you have to get used to, and I'm not used to it yet.
So you're looking at so if I'm understanding correctly, you're kind of looking at maybe getting into the music industry more so than like the video or filmography industry.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm a jack of all trades when it comes to creative work. It's just there's some things that I want to try out because I have a bit more finesse with it and a bit more understanding with it. So it might be worth it to go into those fields. But I guess that's it for me. Tell us about you, Michael.
Yeah, so I'll talk about school because I am a full-time student. I'll talk about that first before going into work or side projects. So for school, for people who don't know, I am a master's student here in Taipei, Taiwan. I am studying translation on a scholarship. I have the what was it called? The Taiwan scholarship, the one that pays for like 80% of your cost of living. It doesn't pay for everything. It's a finite sum, but it does pay for a lot. And so I'm basically studying here debt free, and of course I do work part-time jobs, but I'll get into that later. Yeah, I'm a second year student. I thought I needed 3 years to graduate. I thought I needed 2 years to graduate, but I think I'm going to be graduating in 2.5 years. Like I'm already on my thesis writing stage. I have a thesis advisor. I believe he's of Chinese descent, but lived in the Philippines for a long period of time. I think he was probably born there and then later came to Taiwan and became a naturalized ROC citizen. And so his English is actually very, very good. By virtue of living in the Philippines for a long time, his English is very, very good. So he teaches the Chinese to English courses at my institution. Some of them, not all of them, but teaches some of them. I was in a similar position that Berger was from 2017 to 2019, where I was doing classes at it was actually the same university but different like department, and that was called Mandarin Training Center, MTC. Probably one of the better known Mandarin centers in Taiwan, at least. And I was doing language training there for about 2 years. So I was in a very, very similar position to what Berger is. It's not a degree program, it's just language training. That's just a thing, you know, abroad. Like you don't always have to go for a degree, right? Sometimes you're just there for training. So that's what that specific department was. And of course, like there's the associated proficiency test. In Taiwan, it's called TOEFL. I think it's called Test of Chinese as a Foreign Language. TOCFL. And then in the mainland China, it's called HSK, right? What was it called? 华语水平考试 or something like that.
Yeah. When I was in mainland China, I was kind of looking at what the requirements for the HSK1 was while I was as an English teacher over there. You know, I kind of thought about studying, but basically I was in a position where my Mandarin was even weaker. And, well, the difference between the dialects and phrases they use in mainland China are different in Taiwan.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I kind of had to relearn a couple of things when I moved here as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And then that's not to mention the fact that I hate that phrase, but that's not to mention the fact that you probably learned a lot of simplified characters, but they're not commonly used in Taiwan. So anyway, like just like Berger, I did language training, but I did that for 2 years. My first year was under a scholarship, actually, a different one, but I was under a scholarship. And I loved Taiwan so much that I decided to come back. So that's why I applied for my master's, and here I am, second year, going strong. I don't feel exhausted. I love my classmates. I'm auditing a class with first years, actually. I'm a second year, but I'm auditing a class for first years because I wanted extra practice. So I'm not taking it for a grade, but I'm doing all the assignments. I'm taking for extra practice, but I'm also networking. I'm meeting a lot of students who, like, one of them is an English teacher. He's actually a third year. And I asked him, like, maybe when I graduate, like, maybe I could get a job. And he's like, yeah, we'll see, like, we can keep in contact about that. And I think I want to go ask him more about like part-time positions because my current scholarship is quickly running out. So I'll probably be some kind of part-time teacher soon, sometime next year, I think. But speaking of work, I do have a little bit of overlap with Berger. I'm not a filmographer, but I'm a voice actor. I take orders regularly from a client from Brazil. His name is Bruno. He's in charge of the See You in History YouTube channel. Oh man, I remember he had like 10 subs or 50 subs or whatever. and now he's got like 1 point something million, like 1.1 million, and I've been working with him for like 4 years.
Wow.
It's been such an honor to work with him, and he's always come back to me for work. And I think the funny thing is I never called him once. You know, I have his Discord. I just added him on Discord like a month ago, but I never actually sat down to talk to him, but I would love to do that. So I do voice acting on the side. Link to my channel here. I'm gonna flash it on the screen. We'll flash it on the screen if we can. And then I do freelance translation as well. I'm currently on a project. I can't say too much, but I'm on a project, a paid project for translation work, a piece of translation. So I'll speak more about that when it actually does come out. I've done other paid work before for translation. I think I translated a couple tweets one time for a friend. Well, that was like English to Chinese. And then have I done anything else? Done some proofreading work on some freelance sites before. And then the last kind of like work piece that I do is tutoring English. So I do tutor English. I used to have like 3 students at one time. Right now, I technically have 2. I've got 2 students. One of them needs help with writing her thesis, so I'll be helping her with that. And then the other student, I just teach conversational English. So I wear many hats. I don't think I'm a jack of all trades like Burger, but I do wear many hats in that regard. But now speaking about personal projects and side projects, you know, this is where the thing where I actually envy you because I don't actually have that much content on my YouTube channel, so I don't really call myself a YouTuber more than I call myself a podcaster.
I would not consider myself a YouTuber either. Like, I'm pretty unknown, to be honest. I have started doing furry-related YouTube content since 2017, and it has only gotten me 2.5K subs. Not a whole lot of retention or constant views, I should say. It's difficult just because, like, I had some motion going, and I kind of did what I liked doing regardless of whether it would get me fame or not, and it ended up with me kind of wishy-washy about whether I actually want to be more well-known or not, whether I want to do more networking, whether I want to do more collaborations. And I've done plenty of collaborations with other furry YouTubers. I actually did one when I was in mainland China with Pocari Roo, with her online social etiquette video for furries or whatever, and she needed someone to talk about like online role play, and I was her man. So
I don't think I've seen that one, but yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah.
I just think like I either need to take it to a different direction again, or I just need to embrace another creative medium entirely, because I'm kind of like not too excited about doing the whole how furry is it thing anymore.
And we'll definitely have more time to talk about like future goals and projects towards the end of this episode, so we can probably hold our thoughts for that. I was going to say that, so again, I do have a YouTube channel, but I don't really post too much, mainly out of busyness, partly because I don't have an actual recording booth. And I've got a very sensitive mic. I've got a very sensitive shotgun mic, the Sennheiser 416. I love it. I would like to try out different mics, but I don't think I got that much money to spend on mics. But I just don't have the space that would be conducive to having a good recording environment. So I haven't been uploading real serious voice acting works. And I haven't really been going to places like, like Casting Call Club, those kinds of things. Even if they're just like amateur productions or indie productions, you know, any kind of experience is good, I think. But maybe when I move out, that's probably something, you know, that I could do. The other thing I guess like in terms of the concrete things, you know, like if my YouTube is a place where I haven't uploaded that much stuff, and I can't really talk about that in concrete details, the one thing I can say that I do have concrete details is actually like this mini documentary I'm doing for my institution. I know I gave Berg a quick look at it, like I think it might have been a month ago. And I was just filming with a Sony A7 III. I was using a Sigma 2475 f2.8 and literally just doing handheld shots. Camera shake was on purpose, by the way. So when you saw the footage, most of that like was a little bit exaggerated, but it wasn't my hand shaking unintentionally. It was actually intentional shaking. And, you know, that kind of gave it like The Office kind of vibe, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like of course though, having like a monopod or tripod for actual dedicated like smooth shots, yeah, that would have been nice as well. But I've got like that mini documentary that like I'm almost finished with. I would say I'm about like 99% finished. I just need to add in the credits and I should be done. So that's probably going to be something I do sometime this week, so I can get that in and then possibly even have it show on like my institution's like Facebook page or something like that. So I'm really excited for that. And then I don't even know if I even mentioned like the content. So just very briefly, the content of that documentary was basically like to highlight the mock conference that we had. And the mock conference was basically like my fellow classmates taking on different roles like guest speakers, interpreters, MCs. And so like I was just, I was the dedicated photographer, but I was also doing some videography. So I was just combining all the random video clips I took together and just throwing into a documentary. That's basically what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to see it. Yeah. And let's move on to our plans for the podcast, how it's changed over the course of a year. First of all, what do you think about the podcast so far? Like, any general thoughts?
I'm probably going to cheat a little bit and give my general thoughts and also talk about the changes. So general thoughts about the podcast. I'm very happy, honestly. Like I think we've come such a long way from the very first episode, from episode 1. And I think that comes from multiple reasons. And like I said, there were some changes that we implemented. For example, we tried shortening the podcast episodes to 40 to 45 minutes based on a lot of feedback. And then we also focused our questions. We kind of really zeroed in our questions. And I know like during our sort of like drafting stage, it's something I'm always very picky on, but it always produces a better product. To be more focused on like, what is it that you actually want to say? What is it that you want to know from this episode, but still keep it relevant to what the podcast is trying to say? I always think that's important to always like, you always like harken back to the mission goal, like that, what exactly is the goal of the podcast? And the goal is to bridge the East and the West. I think that with limited time in a podcast, and with sort of like, without trying to sound like so boring, like we have to cut things down and we have to really get focused in on like, what is it that we really want to know? So I'm always really picky on like the questions we ask, the nature of the questions. And then I guess the last change that I'll bring up is we decided to release one episode per month as a way to allow more time for our own personal lives, basically. I know that was especially true for me being a full-time student. I found it very difficult to release 2 episodes per month. This is basically a practice of quality over quantity.
Yeah, and it would give us a chance to maybe think about other things that we could do with this podcast, and we can talk more about that later. I think I'm quite happy with it as well. I think at first we didn't quite know where we wanted to take it, and that's generally how most of these projects start. It's just that with YouTube, you start out with your roughest draft, even if it's polished. You basically start out with your roughest draft as your episode 1, and then just chip away at it and then polish it from there. I'm not too worried about how our first podcast sounds, just because we've progressed pretty well.
And I really think that it was important to listen to the feedback of the audience and also try to somehow summarize them, because again, I remember talking to Ray and Kaioki for about 3 hours from like midnight to 3 a.m. and we were just talking back and forth like, these are our suggestions for the podcast and here are the reasons why. And of course, you can't always take every single suggestion, but I think again, like responding to your audience in a way that actually resonates with them is one way to be successful. So you actually kind of do and give what the audience what they actually want, instead of producing something that they don't want or something that is a little bit unexpected. And I know that advice can be very controversial, but I think it worked very well here, especially like the point about length that I mentioned, like shortening the podcast to 40-45 minutes. I think that was a very, very big factor. And like, even for me, I was like, you know what, I don't know if I want to spend a whole hour listening to this podcast if it doesn't get to the point.
As an editor, it's definitely gotten me to realize that I don't want to listen to too much audio in one take. Like, I remember our second episode with Kofu was going to be like an hour and 30 minutes. At some point, we decided to throw in some common sense in there, like, hey, this is too long. I don't want to do this. But also, I think the reason we initially weren't sure about the length is because me personally, I'm used to podcasts that go on for more than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Mainly because it's all just banter between internet co-hosts and pals that know each other well enough that they can keep a conversation going for that long.
It's like a direction, right? Like it's a direction that you can, if for anyone who wants to start a podcast, like I'm not going to say what's right or wrong here. I don't think I'm in any power, any position to say that. So for those podcasts that want to go over an hour long or 2 hours long, I definitely think that's a direction that they can go in. But I think when you just start out, when you don't even have that much of an audience, it might be more conservative yet safer to stay within the 1 hour mark. And maybe even do 20 to 30 minutes when you first start a podcast. I don't know, do you have any thoughts about that? Or?
Well, that reminds me of one YouTuber by the name of Scott the Woz, whose videos basically started out less than 10 minutes in length. And then as he got more of an audience and more of a vision, better with his editing and his script writing and his comedy, he has a video that is an hour long, almost an hour long. But that's compared to his other videos, which are within the range of like 15 to 20 minutes.
I really do think like people have shorter attention spans nowadays, and like making shorter videos is a way to kind of like respond to that change. And then when you build that sort of following, it's probably okay to make something a bit longer. This is not to say, you can watch a Marvel movie and it's like 2 hours long. You can watch movies, it doesn't have to be Marvel, but you could watch any movie and it's 2 hours long. This is not to say that people can't sit and watch a movie or some kind of content that's long. It's just when you don't have such a strong following at first, it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, I guess, if you're asking your audience to sit for an hour plus for something that they don't know. They don't know the content. They don't know what you're going to bring to the table. So let's keep talking about the podcast, but let's go ahead and talk about like what's something that like stuck out to you the most in terms of like, what is your favorite moment, favorite episode, something like that. I'm kind of curious to see what your response is, because I don't think I've ever asked you that question, at least not lately.
Well, the one thing that I've always thought is like how many people you personally know and how you've networked with so many people from around the world.
Really? I was not expecting the answer. I feel flattered.
I mean, just a general glance at your personal Discord server and all the friends you've introduced me to. You've shown me people from Europe, from Southeast Asia, East Asia. Well, one of them is Taiwanese, half Paraguayan, if I'm getting that right.
If you're talking about Juno, shout out to Juno, by the way. You're talking about Juno, I believe he's full-blooded Taiwanese, but he grew up in Paraguay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but people like that. I've done that a little bit with the mainland Chinese furries, but that's only been a couple of people. That was, again, when my Mandarin was a lot weaker and I wasn't in a big hurry to study the language that I'm doing right now.
And I just want to kind of just real quick about that and say, like, I think that's really like awesome that you're finally starting to learn the language. I just really had to make that comment because like not a lot of people will go out to really learn a new language or even go to a foreign country. So I think you're doing an awesome thing, and you definitely deserve a pat on the back. I just had to cut in to say that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's just I'm doing this just so I can have better job opportunities, if I'm being honest. If you don't speak the main native language of a country, then your opportunities for employment are very limited. It's either going to be physical labor or teaching your native language to the people of that country. It's either I stay here in Taiwan and be an English teacher, or I'm just going to not be here in Taiwan.
So going back to the point that you mentioned about like networking and everything, yeah, that's always, I won't stay on this topic for long, but that's always something that I feel like I didn't really start doing until 2017, but I always make an effort to do that. You know, like if people are interested in you and if you're interested in that person, then, you know, you can try being friends and try and let things, you know, flow naturally. There are people who aren't going to be receptive to you, but you don't have to waste your time. You don't need to waste your time with those people. And, you know, I'm 27. You know, it was my birthday. What last month, like a few weeks ago, and so I'm 27 now. And happy birthday to me, I guess. But yeah, like I just think that like time is limited and time should be spent with like good company. So that's what I'll say about that. So for me to answer the question, like what's something that stuck out in our podcast, I guess I'll probably have a little bit more of a traditional answer. The Cheers episode, the Cheers and Claude episode stuck out to me because I loved their enthusiasm for establishing Powai. I love how descriptive they were in describing their feelings and their emotions of just finally getting a FurCon for Indonesia. And I think like that was probably a victory overall for them, for all Indonesian furs, you know, to finally have a FurCon established in their country. And what was it, like the first Powai was in 2018. So this is very, very recent. And I feel so bad because I had a chance to go there, but it was mainly a financial thing. I just didn't really have the finances at the time to go to Powai. I think it was like in the summer of that year of 2018. But, you know, shout out to those guys, Claude and Chiros. I would say like that was like them describing Powai, and especially what was it? It was them saying Powai, Powai. And we probably showed this before, but I think it's in Chiros's video at the very end of like I think it was the 2018 video when that happened. And, you know, you have like these guys in the hotel room or in the venue, I think, and they're saying, you know, they're chanting Powai, Powai. This is probably at the end of the con. They're probably their closing ceremonies. And I was very moved by that scene.
Yeah. And to me, honestly, I can't wait for other countries around this side of the world to have that. I can't wait for, I know there are furries in Vietnam. I can't wait for them to have that Powai moment. I can't wait for the South Korean furries to finally have their full hotel and convention kind of a thing and have their Powai moment.
I mean, they kind of already have it, like in the sense that they do have a con at least. They just don't have the con plus hotel.
Yeah. In the Philippines, they've never had a hotel plus con. They've just had the convention center. And then if you had a hotel nearby, great. Otherwise, you had to commute.
There were a lot of apartments nearby. Like I was actually one of those people who stayed at Airbnb actually. So I don't think the community thing was such a big deal. Because again, there's just probably a lot of spaces, but probably the bigger deal is finances because, you know, the Philippines is not a very rich country.
Right.
What episode would you say is your favorite?
Honestly, my favorite would have been the one with Titania.
Oh my God, no way! I wrote that down. I wrote that down.
You predicted it?
Shit. I wrote that down. That's my favorite as well.
Really?
I wrote. Oh my Lord! Shout out to her, man. She's got a daiki now, apparently.
Wow, a daiki?
Oh, sorry, I said dakimakura.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, wish I could afford it.
Yeah.
Well, it was going to be either her or Alder and Kyochi. I think we had a lot of fun with Alder and Kyochi, but the fact that I went out of my way to talk to Titania and bring her onto the podcast, and that was like one of our most successful, most viewed episodes, that kind of makes me feel like, wow, this is a official thing, you know?
That's how it works. Yeah. I mean, whenever, you know, like for the sake of the podcast and, you know, for networking, yeah, sometimes you take the shot and things work out for you. So I'm glad you did that. I also want to say my favorite episode is the Titania episode. So like, I know I talked about Chiros and Claude in the Powai episode, but like overall, an episode I'd love would be the Titania episode. I never heard of her until you told me about her. And then overall, she's just a really nice person to talk to. And then I also gamed with her a couple times on Overwatch, and she saved our asses. And then I've also never been to Furry Joa. That's apparently the correct pronunciation, Furry Joa.
Yeah.
It's a pun in Korean. And I've never been to South Korea for that matter. I had a transfer there, but I don't count those as actual, like, I don't ever tell people I've ever been to the country if I transfer there. So like I was always curious about South Korean furs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that episode really scratched a lot of itches.
Yeah, and I only went there on holiday years ago for like 2.5 days. I never interacted with the furry community there. I did take some photos in fursuit while I was there in Seoul, but that's about it in terms of that. I also had a transfer flight there heading into Taiwan. But yeah, that's basically my experience with South Korea. So throughout this whole podcast journey, we've been talking to many different people through many different nationalities and backgrounds. What are things that you assumed about a country's fandom beforehand, and that ended up being completely different from what you had previously thought? Or a more interesting spin, what did you assume correctly?
I think I've got a short answer for this one. The Thailand episode with Pukan, he said that the Thai furry fandom was actually more influenced by the Japanese furry fandom rather than the Western fandom. And I remember asking a question about this, and he corrected me on that. He said like, well, actually, the Thai furry fandom was more influenced by the Japanese furry fandom. And I was like, oh, okay, like I never thought about that. And and you guys can rewatch the episode when I was like, oh, I didn't even know actually. Like it was a little bit of a point of contention. And so I want to say I want to use like the general we here and say like we kind of assume that comes from the West and is most strongest from the West, but other countries do have their own fandoms, and those fandoms can influence other countries. It's not just coming from the US, it's not just coming from a European country. And so I think like that was really what challenged my belief there. But I love that episode and I love that question because that's what we're here for. You know, we want to know the similarities and differences. We want to know more about the fandoms in other countries. So that would be my answer to that question.
Yeah. And as for me, what you said was pretty interesting, but what I didn't know was how many different countries, the general populace reactions to the fandoms. I thought it was going to be more or less similar to how the West deals with it. You know, like kind of friendly. They think they're weird, or they think we're trying to, like, maybe we're mascots or something. Plenty of different countries have this view of furries looking like mascot characters. Companies generally want their mascots to be like all friendly and recognizable for that capitalist gain. But also, how many furries have had to like bribe security guards to just or tell them, like, have a big discussion with them in order to not get kicked out or barred from a specific place? That was, I didn't assume that would happen so often. But
yeah,
then again, I've only had a tourist experience with Southeast Asia so far.
I thought that was interesting too. It never really crossed my mind about the whole bribing thing, and that was definitely such a unique answer. I think like what it was present in the Indonesia episode. Well, I should be saying Claude and Chiros. It was because we did 2 Indonesia episodes. The other one was with Daza. Shout out to Daza. But we had that come up in the Claude and Chiros episode, but then we also had that come up in the Alden Kyoji episode.
Yeah. What do you think is something that you would want to explore in the future with this podcast? What are some things that you want to do further?
Yeah, I'm going to cheat here again with like a 2-part answer, both relatively short though. I guess one would be, I would like to interview furs from Mongolia, Nepal, Burma, or India. I've Googled something like Mongolian furry fandom. I've Googled like Nepalese furry fandom, but I just can't get any good results. And, you know, that could be due to a variety of factors. But, you know, one of them is probably that they might just be using their native language to say something furry fandom. So, but I don't know their language, so I couldn't even type that in if I wanted to. So like I'm so curious to interview someone from these countries, because I've never in my entire life met like a Mongolian fur, never met like a Nepalese fur, never met an Indian fur. That's something that I'm so curious about. Like I don't know if it's necessarily a tenable goal, but that's something I want. And then my second part answer, again, like, this may seem a little bit far-fetched, but I really want to interview someone from the name of the studios escaped me, but the studio that did BNA and the studio that did Beastars, I would love to interview one of the staff members / creators or writers and just ask them like, questions about furry? Do they know that this exists? You know, what do you think about it? Do you know how much influence you've had on the furry fandom through these shows or movies, and especially on the Asian furry fandom? I'm just so curious to see if any of them are furries. And I know it's a little bit of a reach, but that's something I would love to get there, right? Like I would love to be at a point where I can ask someone from those studios.
Yeah, I'll just say in response to that, I will just second the notion of trying to grab someone from a little bit west of East Asia, like in South Asia or so, just because funny story, I almost had a ticket over to Qatar in the Middle East on my way back to the US when I was on a little multi-country vacation once I was exiting mainland China. The only thing that was stopping me was that I got mixed up with getting a tourist visa getting into Vietnam. I did not get that settled properly. I was stuck in Malaysia's Kuala Lumpur International Airport for a bit. And instead of going to Qatar, I went to the UK, then back to the US as a transfer. But yeah, I'm definitely curious where how far furry has gone around the world, just because of how the West, and in some parts Japan as well, has influenced the rest of the world outside of them. I feel like the US and the UK and Japan have had the most cultural outreach. Yeah, to the rest of the world. It depends on which countries have the most, just how much interaction the rest of the world has with these cultural powerhouses. But I would say Japan has become less of a technological powerhouse and more of a cultural powerhouse now, just because you have more companies in Taiwan and China and Korea and other places that are picking up with the technological front, less so with the cultural stuff. But yeah, because furry has their presence in Japan and the Europe and the US and Canada and all that, I'm just wanting to see, that's the goal of this podcast, is how is furry in places outside of where it basically originated.
Yeah, exactly. I think that we're always striving towards that goal, and I really don't think any other podcast is attempting to answer that question. I know there are furry podcasts out there, but I don't know if there are furry podcasts that are trying to answer this question or who have this goal. I also just kind of thought of something quickly. Sanrio Agresco, I would love to interview someone from them. So shout out to that show. I'm actually behind. I think they have a season 3 now.
They definitely have a season. They definitely have a season 3. I'm waiting on season 4. I believe that's dropping soon, like within.
So days. You're caught up. I'm not caught up. I'm not caught up. So we've been talking a lot about our lives, our updates about the podcast. But again, let's talk about where we want to take the podcast and maybe like other future plans that we have. So the big change that I'm very, very happy to announce is that we are now going to change our YouTube channel to Fox and Burger Productions. And this ties into my next point, which is we really want to do more things beside the podcast. The podcast is fun. Don't get me wrong on that. But I think that maybe doing vlog videos about us in Taiwan, or perhaps international travel when that becomes possible again, I think that might be exciting content. I've been kind of like slowly taking some videos and a lot of pictures because I'm a photographer, but I've been taking some videos of my travels. But I'm really not a vlogger. I don't think I've got the persona. But I think like combined together with either one of us as a cameraman or one of us as the host or whatever, I think we make a pretty good team. And so if we ever go to travel like with other furs, hopefully they'll be okay with us filming them. But like I would love for like a fur to take us to a city here in Taiwan or a special place. We do a little bit of vlogging, maybe some fursuit photos, and record that and maybe do a vlogging style video, but with like furry in it. So that's one direction where I would say like we want to take the production. So we're kind of thinking of ourselves as more as a production house rather than just the podcast only. And the podcast will still be there. Podcast will still be there. I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. So happy for that. What about you though? I mean, do you have anything like you would like to do for the podcast or for our productions?
Well, we've been doing a little side project called A Side of Burger and Fox. I think I don't even have the name memorized. Where we do like a little quiz or trivia thing. When I was growing up, I had a fascination with game shows and all that growing up, just because it was just a nice way to waste time, but also it was very engaging. It was something you can actually watch with other people. I really like the aspect of it. It's like you could also play it at home if you wanted to. And I've tried doing the whole game show thing at some furry conventions. I've tried doing it at some brony conventions. Doing that for the podcast, I feel like it's a fun little extra thing. So we've done it with a couple of people so far. We still need to edit some of that, and we still need to ask some people to come back and do a little recording of that for this side project as well. But also, I think if I can mention this, we're going to do some gaming streams as well.
Yep.
I think at LIFC Online, I remember you helped host the Left 4 Dead 2 little tournament there.
Yeah, we had some matches. It was technically two matches, yeah.
If we work this out, basically we could have some live streams either on YouTube or on Twitch where we play some games that we have. It could be Left 4 Dead 2, it could be Overwatch. I know you play like Back 4 Blood. I don't have that game, but there are definitely some games that I have that we could try out as well.
You took the words right out of my mouth, where we're also wanting to do some more of that. I think the VTuber thing is also kind of maybe on the table if we can get avatars. But I think game streams, and then maybe playing with the guests or playing with our fans, and then maybe let's just say Jackbox, for example. It doesn't have to be a first person shooter. If we do Jackbox, we would I would love to play with the guests or play with the fans. Jackbox isn't really my thing, so I probably won't do very well, but I think it's an option, right? I don't think it's a hard thing to do. We might have to keep it family friendly depending on what happens, but live streaming your game, I think that's definitely something that has really exploded after post COVID. I mean, we're still living in COVID, but post 2020, I would say. Yeah, Left 4 Dead, Paladins, Overwatch, any game that we have, like the really basic games, those are probably safe bets. And we will listen to the audience. Whatever you guys want us to play, then we'll probably play it. I don't want to play Amnesia, but if people want to watch us play Amnesia, I'll play Amnesia. I think I have one of the Amnesia games. I don't know anything about it, but yeah, I've got one of those.
Yeah, I've played some of those horror games before. Amnesia, Five Nights at Freddy's. I've got a couple of those. That might be interesting. Now, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Before we leave this podcast, let's talk more about some more goals or plans for the future. So, I know you are staying because you're a student here, but when you finally graduate, what do you have plans for in terms of your work situation?
Again, I am a student here, and I do want to repeat that I will probably need an extra semester to graduate, so it looks like I'll be graduating after fall 2022. And I do plan on working and living in Taiwan after I graduate for at least 3 to 4 years. I don't think I'll live here permanently, and I don't think I'll be a citizen, but I do want to live here for a good chunk of my well, I'm in my late 20s, but let's just say I would like to ride out my 20s in Taiwan and do my early 30s here as well. And then after those 3 to 4 years, I'll see where I want to go. Because I also am thinking about studying Thai so that I can also use that as a sort of like a way to get into the Thai translation market. That's one route that I've been thinking of. And I mean, hell, I could probably learn Thai here in Taiwan. If I found a really, really good tutor, I could probably do that. And then for other more personal goals, one thing that I'm also very happy to announce that I've already told some of my friends, but one thing that I want to get more into next year is parkour. So I mean, hell, even after this podcast, I'm actually going to do some walking. I'm gonna just walk around my neighborhood and maybe go to like a park or something like that, and just do walking, just get back into the habit of doing some kind of walking, some kind of light exercise before moving on to like the heavier stuff like actual jogging and sprinting, because I'm really out of shape. But parkour has been something I've always wanted to do ever since I played Mirror's Edge. So that sounds like the weeb, or sounds like the nerdy answer, but it's so true. I think I was very fascinated with the game, so it left a really good impression on me. And but going back to my work situation, one thing I forgot to mention was I do want to work as a professional translator here. So that would be like the dream job, I would suppose. So if everything aligns, I'm all for that. If I work hard at it, I'm pretty sure I'll get there. So we'll see what happens. So what about you? What are your plans for the next, I don't know, 3-4 years?
In the immediate time being, I'm stuck here because I cannot afford a plane out back to the U.S. Especially wouldn't know how I would afford a 2-week quarantine in the U.S. I wouldn't know how to afford a 2-week quarantine coming back into Taiwan, or even if I would legally be allowed to come back inside of Taiwan after escaping it. I need to find some work that I would enjoy while I'm here in the time being, but I do want to stay here. I'm not here for cynical reasons. I'm here just because I like going outside of my comfort zone every once in a while. Like, usually it's part of my personality to be more introverted and to stay in my own little box. But eventually, when I get the urge to go out of that box, I really go out. Like, I just really want like going out and exploring at my own pace. And if I had all the money in the world, I would have traveled the whole world by now if COVID didn't exist. Well,
props to you, because I hear that like the people who hold a passport in America are actually the minority. So I say props to you for wanting to get out of your comfort zone, because I think most Americans don't.
Yeah, that's basically where I am. I do want to pursue more creative efforts. I want to get out of doing nothing but teaching at cram schools and such. And I can't really go home right now, but I can always have video calls with my family.
I definitely miss my family. I don't call my family as much as you do. I call them every once in a while, but I miss my family so much. As much as we keep saying we like Taiwan, I think both of us can admit that we still miss our family. I miss Texas, for sure.
Oh, I definitely do too. I miss having actual, like, cheeseburgers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of things I miss about the States. A lot of things I take for granted that you only get in the States. I feel that like these are things that we grew up with in the States. But of course, to kind of put it harshly, that's the price you pay living abroad, especially living in a non-Western country. I know that travel is definitely not possible right now. So not safe travel, at least. Safe traveling isn't really possible right now. But I really hope we get to a point where we can go back to traveling. And like I said, we do vlogs, we do national vlogs, we go and see different countries, go meet up with furs, like everyone, not everyone, but like 90% of the people who have been on this podcast are people I've met before. And I would love to see them again. So thank you to all the guests. I miss all of you. I really miss all of you. And then to all our future guests, we don't want to reveal too much, but to all our future guests, like I want to see them as well.
Yeah, I do too. I want to meet all the people you've met personally, because I've always seen them on Discord and video calls and all that. And with that, I believe we are at the curtail end of this segment. I'll let you do your social media shoutouts, and then I'll do mine.
Yeah, finally we can finally show our social media. We can say our social media shoutouts. Though technically they've always been written in the video description. But yeah, so you can find me at Foxnack on Twitter. That's going to be at FOXNAKH. And only true friends know what that name means. I will say that. That is my Twitter. You'll see all my links on my Linktree, because I can't memorize all my freaking links anymore. So please go there, follow me. If you're interested in voice acting by this guy, if you're interested in just, I don't know, fursuit photos, and then some more, I guess, like Taiwan related stuff. I don't actually use Twitter all that much, but I'm trying to use it more and more to engage with people, because I'm on Facebook a little bit more, to be honest with you. But yeah, so that's my social media.
And I'll just go ahead and plug my Twitter as well. It's Lightning Runner, all one string. The first I in Lightning is a 1, just because I'm edgy and internet elite.
And don't forget to follow Fox and Burger Podcast. If you're not following us, why aren't you? You've listened to 15 episodes so far, and you haven't followed us, so shame on you. but Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. 圣诞节快乐, or as they say.
圣诞节快乐,新年快乐.
新年快乐. Yeah, that too. It's like 2 big surprises wrapped up together to bring in the new year. So this has been a great experience so far. I hope we continue it later on throughout the years. So thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you in 2022. This has been the Fox and Burger podcast as part of Fox and Burger Productions. With me, Burger.
And I'm Fox.
And we'll see you next year. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.